Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond. Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, we review the week, focusing on the NRM Victory Day, which was yesterday. Yesterday, the NRM commemorated 26 years after the 1986 liberation victory that followed a 5-year bush war. At the function in Kapchorwa yesterday, President Museveni highlighted the achievements and challenges, but noted that the fundamental change he promised Ugandans at the steps of Parliament, as he was being sworn in back then, have indeed been felt by almost all Ugandans. He, however, noted, that his energies are now directed at transforming Uganda into a first-class economy using oil. At this function, 2 foreign leaders were awarded the highest honor in Uganda, taking the most excellent order of the Pearl of Africa medals. As we round up the week, we focus tonight on the key issues that emerged at this function to try and understand their significance and also benchmark the 26 years of the NRM. Our guests tonight, Honorable Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, Commissioner of Parliament, also Kinkizi East MP from the NRM Party. You're most welcome, Honorable Baryomunsi.
Thank you very much, and good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL, also social and political commentator. You're most welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Edmond, and good evening to all the listeners.
Well, we're also joined by Honorable Atiku, Member of Parliament from Ayivu County in Arua, coming from the FDC, or Forum for Democratic Change Party. You're most welcome, Honorable Atiku.
Thank you. Good evening, listener.
Nicholas, President Museveni defended the NRM legacy and criticized those who said the NRM did not deliver on the fundamental change promised. He said that, you can feel this change in the air everywhere you go, and now he's only moving to turn the economy into a first-class economy. Is this something that you agree with? Do we see a fundamental change 26 years down the road?
You see, Edmond, let us be fair to the president. Uganda is not the same as the Uganda in 1985. Certain things in our country have changed, and changed for the better. The days when there was no judiciary to speak of, the days when the economy was running on black market is no more. We have a new constitutional order. We have a constitution that provides for an elaborate Bill of Rights, sets institutions to monitor human rights, allows independence, in theory at least, for many CSOs. That is true. That's a given. But I think the frustration of Ugandans is not that there has not been anything done at all, but that there has been, since 1995, a steady degeneration in many key aspects of the state.
Since 1995?
Yes.
So the first 9-10 years were good. After that, we peaked.
The first 9-10 years were relatively very good in terms of the things that this government did. For the first time, after they came into power, they ratified several human rights instruments. That was positive. A commission of inquiry was set up to investigate, human rights abuses. That was positive. Eventually, a constitutional commission was set up that then came up with what we now have as our constitution. But also, the truth is that the discomfort of the president operating within a set of rules, the discomfort of the president operating within a governance structure in which power has been shared between the executive, between parliament, between the judiciary, between commissions that actually had lots of power, became very apparent. And that therefore a deliberate attempt was then made to dismantle this constitution. Now you have what you see here. Term limits were removed, several other things were then changed in the constitution. So a discomfort coupled with 4 key things, in my view. The first is a steady degeneration of social services in this country. When I was going to school, primary schools were relatively very well equipped. They had books, they had pens given out to students for free. Our primary schools now in spite of the huge enrollment, you can't speak about quality. Hospitals that were built by the Bote government in Naka hospitals, in villages, now are just structures without medicine, without doctors, without nurses. So there has been a steady degeneration in the social service sector for this country, and the president needs to admit this. Secondly, Uganda's record in as far as human rights observance has been steadily degenerating over time. Whereas in 1996 the president would only threaten that if you come to City Square you will go 6 feet down. This is actually now being seen. That people who attempt to hold rallies are actually
going 6 feet,
taken 6 feet down. Detention centers, the multiplicity of security agencies who torture, who arrest people arbitrarily. So there seems to be a deterioration in our human rights record. And thirdly, the question of corruption. The president needs to acknowledge that corruption, for whatever reason, has become more prominent now. It could be because there's some freedom to speak about it, but the fact also is that the theft that we are seeing now is unprecedented. Never before in the history of this country has one single individual, for example, taken away 143 billion shillings.
169 billion.
169 billion shillings.
Yes.
So, on matters of corruption, the president needs to admit certain things have gone wrong and must take responsibilities for them, because the buck stops at his desk. He's the chief executive officer.
Yes.
Fourthly, is the whole go on. I've lost my count.
Go on.
And this is the last one. Is the whole question of the restriction of the space for civil activities by both civil organizations, the opposition, and any other person who disagrees with the establishment. Continuously, journalists are finding it difficult. There are things I can't say on this radio station because they will close you.
No, you are free.
They will close you tomorrow morning.
It's a free country.
You see, there are things you can't write about in this country. So we must accept that there's been some backtracking in some of these things, and we must commit then to change them. Because if you don't admit that something has gone wrong, then you can't address it.
Right.
So the president needs to be a little bit more honest. He's done so much for this country. We do appreciate, but so much has gone wrong under his nose.
Dr. Baryomunsi, let's talk specifically not about the good things. Let's talk about this degeneration that Nicholas has been describing. How do we get from there? As the NRM peaked, 1995 we're now going backwards, and we can't redeem ourselves.
Why you are unfair to me? I'm from NRM, and you want me to talk about the degeneration without acknowledging the positive steps which have been realized over time.
Go on.
Of course, a lot has been achieved, and it's also true that there are challenges, but I don't think that they are to the scale which is being described. Like some of the achievements, I mean, you look at the peace, security, rule of law, democracy. Ugandans having the right to elect their own leader. That's why Honorable Atiku from FDC is elected at the Campus Parliament.
The quality of election
to meet me. I think those are appreciated by Ugandans, especially those who are old enough to compare with the past regime, the first half of the 50 years of independence, and compare it with NRM. But also it is true that there are challenges which NRM and the government must address. Definitely, like social services. One of the fundamental achievements under the NRM has been enabling young people access education. It is true in our times, yes, we would even get many first grades, maybe the quality was better, but few children were accessing education. So the achievement here is that with the UPE, USE, Universal A level, which is starting, there are many young people who are accessing education. And of course, because of the quantities, that has brought down the quality. And the challenge is that now we must address questions of quality so that we enable children to go to school but also get quality education. You look at health services. The NRM has constructed very many health center force. True, there is a challenge of health workers being inadequate, but the situation of drugs has improved. I was just in Kamani yesterday as a chief guest at the NRM Day celebration. I began by going through Kabuga Hospital, and even at the Rwanda I asked people, are there drugs in health centers? And the answer was yes. Okay. Now the situation has improved, drugs are now there.
All right.
Are now there.
Okay. Well, I mean, of course,
so some of these exaggerations, I have a medical doctor, I know.
Well, but you talk about medicine. I've been told that one health center was constructed with a theater that can only take one person at a time. So you have to choose between the patient and the doctor.
What do you mean?
Well, it was so big or so small, only one person could step in there at a time.
No, that cannot be true. At least I have. Which hospital is that, or which health center?
You can get the name.
Because you can't get one person in a theater. Only one person. There must be a patient and a doctor, a nurse.
Maybe you need to investigate that. And
I wish I knew which.
Go on.
But I've also seen the architecture designs from Ministry of Health. It's so true that there is any design where a theater allows only one person. Some of these are just exaggerations. Yes, they are challenges, but I don't think they are as bad as they are being presented. Let's look at the issue of corruption. Of course, true, currently the issue of corruption is getting very high profile. But even who is pushing this issue of corruption, it is NRM itself. Just look at the manifesto of NRM. We did the pledge, zero tolerance to corruption.
And we are seeing that.
Yes, and even in both parliament, who are the people who are pushing this zero tolerance to corruption?
NRM.
It's NRM. So it's a challenge, yes, but we must address it as NRM. Restriction of space. I think we have a vibrant media. I was just today talking to Honorable Nanda Ramafavi about the rallies they are holding in Kampala, and he tells me they are having successful rallies within Kampala. I don't know whether my friend Atiku is attending. I think the challenge has been on how the opposition and the other activists can cooperate with police, or how police can cooperate with the activists, so they can have successful rallies and demonstrations, because you know the constitution allows demonstrations in Uganda. So the question is, how does police regulate these demonstrations to ensure that they are peaceful? So I think the NRM has tried to create this space.
All right.
But these are some of the areas which we have to work on, we have to improve as we move on. But on a scale, I would say NRM would give it 80% in the last 26 years.
80%. And of course, it has opened opportunities. I was looking at the newspapers, and they said that in the school where you came from, they got 0% first grade, which means if there was an opportunity for a man like you to come from such a school, now become a doctor, go to parliament, there is opportunity. Honorable Atiku, you have a Nigerian name, but talk to us tonight about the NRM. Do you think it peaked in 95, as Nicholas says, and do you think there's genuine concern that they really are going backwards?
Yeah, I just want to appreciate my two colleagues who have given their opinions. First, yes, we do appreciate Uganda is not the same from the Uganda of 1986 or 85, and indeed the first 10 years or so of Uganda gave a great hope. We all had hope. I know by then I was still young. I'm a born of 77.
Oh.
So by 86, I was still, in my primary.
9 years old.
Exactly.
Playing with toys.
I should admit that. And the greatest hope for this country came in 1995 when the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda was put in place, and all the benchmarks, actually the judgment, the ultimate judgment we're going to give NRM for the last 26 years is premised on that. And I think, as Opiyo, my lead counsel here has said, the performance of Uganda, or the NRM, in terms of upholding constitutionalism in this country, we're going to have to examine them. How have they fared in terms of the institutions, the various institutions, the parliament, the judiciary, the executive, the fourth arm of the state, the media. And I think when you analyze these four entities, you will come up with a scorecard. For instance, the parliament. how has the parliament performed since 1995, ever since the constitution was put in place?
Yes.
We have seen, I think, the parliament perform its role from 1995 to about 2001. There was still hope. But after that, we saw the bribing of members of parliament with 5 million to remove Article 105.
The president warned and said he didn't bribe. Accusing of bribing.
Yes.
That dented the image, it tainted the image of parliament, because parliament should have stood, the process of removing that article should have been transparent enough. Should have been.
The parliament are worth 5 million shillings.
They took it. Some tried to return it. So parliament at that time, I think, made Ugandans to lose hope, and indeed, the parliament of I should say the 8th parliament worsened it further. There was alarm everywhere, and that's why when they talk of high turnover, being at about 60% of us parliamentarians are new, and more so young people. So that should be able to tell you how the public feels, regardless of whether in NRM or in FDC.
Edmond, just one thing about human rights.
Yes.
I think I need to make this very clear, that a country's human rights record is judged by how that particular country treats its minority, be it sexual minority, political minority, or tribal minority.
Okay.
So when you look at parliament generally, we are trying to revive it. My brother
In the 9th parliament.
Exactly, 9th parliament.
So your indictment goes up to the 8th parliament.
Exactly. My brother Chris here has been telling us it is NRM which is leading in the fight against corruption. But in the 8th parliament, who stood up with the population to say corruption in this government is bad? We are losing over $500 billion every year. Now it has gone to 1 trillion. And I think as an institution now, parliament has regained its ground to say, I think there is a vice here which we must fight.
Okay.
Secondly, judiciary. How has judiciary performed? And I think that is as the temple of justice in this country. We have had issues. For instance, at a certain moment, the president had to call them these judges who cannot even preside over a chicken theft case.
Yes.
But
we also the black mambas.
Exactly. The black mambas storming the high court premises and what have you. So those are challenges where we saw the executive, headed by the president, coming to antagonize the other arm of the state. And I think in this area, we should say these two institutions, the judiciary, the parliament, have been interfered by the executive, which executive is under the authority of the president, who is the NRM chairman, who is the NRM president.
Right.
So really, these are issues which I think we can judge whether NRM has succeeded, or as it say, the president said during his
those are isolated
assumption of
like the black members. Is it the rule?
It happens every day. It goes back into how we respect the independence of institutions, because the constitution is clear. If the judiciary has been empowered to do certain work, to deliver justice,
are you willing to let them?
Exactly. Are you willing to allow them the space to do their work? Are you willing to allow the press do their work without interference? The way we have had police shooting at the journalists who are trying to photograph them and what have you.
Which is a macabre situation.
These are issues which I think when you come down to the way elections have been conducted, he has talked about democracy, but when you go back, how the elections were conducted, the issue of dishing out money.
Yes.
Must we bribe voters if we're getting leaders to stand in for us, to allocate resources for us, to protect the image of this country?
Right.
So
dishing out money.
Go on.
It doesn't matter, but these are collectively. I should say collectively. Even in opposition, I don't know. There are people who could have used money, but that is not good. So these are issues which dilute the 26 years of NRM, the potholes on road, the inflation. I think it is only in NRM regime that inflation has hit 30%. I don't know.
Well, I had it higher before, but
currently it's actually worse.
It's going back.
Fuel is now unaffordable. School fees, we are paying school fees in terms of millions. Private, most of the institutions which were under the state to offer public service have been privatized, and now these services are going to a few section of the society. So really, these are challenges challenges which my brother here, Dr. Chris, needs to address with the chairman, the issue of overstaying in power. We'll talk about that. So these are issues which I think we'll talk about that. Listeners, this is Spectrum. You're listening to Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight we're reviewing the week focusing on the NRM Victory Day, which was yesterday. 26 years. The country has been independent 50 years, half of it under the NRM, one head of state. We do not know whether it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but you can tell us. You can send us a text message about the 26 years of the NRM. Has it been a good thing from your perspective or not? We have guests in the studio, Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, and Honorable Atiku from Ayivu County to balance this thing out for us. Nicholas, the president indicated yesterday that Uganda would have moved faster if the political class was better disciplined. Is that the root of the problem? If they learned, they had a good lesson on discipline, began to behave well, they would have a good country.
Maybe that's why they have not started patriotism classes and clubs. But you see, the assessment of the president is definitely correct. That the indiscipline in the political class, including the presidency, has been largely responsible for the state of affairs in this country. Yeah. What they call zero tolerance for corruption, in my view, has not. The champion of that should be the president. So that members of his cabinet who have been censured, members of his cabinet who are being suspected to have stolen public monies, we should relieve them of their duties first. That would demonstrate, that will show a political commitment to fighting corruption. But what do we see? We see the reverse. That there are attempts to shield and defend people who have been mentioned several times in corruption scandals. There is a recycling of ministers who have been censured before. Or promoting them, for example. People who have been censured before for matters of corruption. So I think that the president's assessment, I think, should start from the presidency and go right downward. But I also think that the biggest problem is, I think, what has, in my view, is just despondent. The people of this country seem to have given up and they think that corruption is the way to go. There is what Justice Ogola described as, that the very rubric of a society is actually rotten. People think that to get anything in this country, you've got to start with a few shillings. That is the state of affairs, and I think that we can only reverse that if we begin to demonstrate political commitment to fighting corruption beyond just manifestos and one-liners of zero tolerance to corruption. We've got to move beyond rhetoric and actually begin to become examples of the fight against corruption.
I'll say something about the president saying it's the permanent secretaries, the technical people, the CAOs, the town clerks and sub-county chiefs. He says that's where the problem is. Well, maybe let
me give an example. I've got a colleague who is an ED of a leading government enterprise.
An executive director?
Yes.
Not the city authority?
No. Of a leading government enterprise, who was almost arrested before committee of parliament. And then I had a chat with this guy. He says, look, some of these things you are called by the top executive and told I want this done. It's on phone, it's not written. You do it, when it backfires, the face of the thing is you.
Well, let's go for a break right now. We'll be back. When you come back, you can send us your text messages. What you do is type the word Spectrum in your phone browser, the message, question, or comment with your name, and send it to 7197. That is Spectrum, question, message, or comment. Send it to 7197. We'll be back.
The Airtel Chika Too Good Crimson Cash promotion is changing people's lives every day.
My name is Team Grace. I stay in Gulu Town. I'm the lucky winner of Chika House in Kampala. I won it by dialing star 500 hash, and I was doing it on daily basis. There are 3 houses remaining. Please dial star 500 hash. You might be the lucky winner. Chika is real. Chika is too good. Chika has changed my life.
Chika Too Good Crimson Cash. Activate Chika Too Good today and win 1 million shillings daily and one of 6 houses every 2 weeks. To activate Chika, dial star 500 hash. Get 30 minutes of Airtel to Airtel calls and win big with Chika Too Good Crimson Cash.
Airtel. John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special.
You've earned it. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back. Welcome back. On Spectrum tonight, we are reviewing the week, focusing on the NRM Victory Day. Our guests in the studios, Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, Commissioner of Parliament, also Member of Parliament for Kinkizi East, coming from the NRM Party, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, Legal Consultant at AKIJUL, also social and political commentator, Honorable Bernard Atiku, making his maiden appearance. He comes from Ayivu County in Arua District. He's Member of Parliament for that county. He comes from the FDC Party of Forum for Democratic Change. You can comment on this discussion, the 26 years of the NRM, by sending us your text message. Type the word Spectrum, message, question or comment, send it to 7197. Honorable Baryomunsi, President Museveni says it is the PSs, the CAOs in the districts, the town clerks, and the sub-county chiefs who are the problem, if you're talking about corruption.
Well, I think partly he's right, because these are the accounting officers, these are the people who handle the money, and actually the biggest form of corruption is within the civil service. But that's not to say that the political leadership is not corrupt, because several examples which we'll be discussing of late involve top political leaders. So much as it's right that the civil servants, the accounting officers, are officially and legally responsible for accounting for the monies, but also there is a collusion with the political leaders, and therefore as we fight corruption, we must address both the political leaders and also the civil servants. And he says that he's going to deploy cadres and so forth. I mean, we have a case like
and pay them 36 million maybe.
Like the PS of local government who ate bicycles. I think it was a cadre. Mr. Kadaka. He received bicycles.
You wanted to buy bicycles, you want to a coconut dealer.
So I think that there is a need for more commitment from the president and all of us on this issue of the fight against corruption. He talks of that the maybe transformation would have been realized if it wasn't for the indisciplined political class. Sometimes we have differed on the definition of this indiscipline. While he wants to look at, say, the members of parliament who are raising these issues from within NRM, whom you, the media people, have called the rebel MPs, or
for lack of a better word,
or maybe the opposition which is demonstrating. But for us, we have said the most indisciplined cadres within the movement are actually the political leaders, the ministers, who are mismanaging these resources, and that's why we want the president to focus and actually direct his guns. And I don't think the so-called indisciplined political class have been a problem other than corruption, and other than the war in the north where Joseph Kony has been ravaging northern Uganda. I think the NRM has had a fairly smooth and interrupted 26 years. So I wouldn't say that it is this disruption by these political leaders, but rather the challenges of putting in place a mechanism to deliver development, given that NRM inherited a state which had collapsed. So the initial years were mainly rehabilitating the country, and now the later years, which my friends are saying they hadn't been achievement, was actually the real time when the country had been rehabilitated and the focus was put on socio-economic transformation from 96 up to now, and I think a lot is being achieved. So the discipline really to me is largely to do with the political corruption and the management of public resources, which we must focus
on. So you defend the president, you don't agree the president is the CEOs. The problem is the political class, the ministers.
No, boss, I said for corruption, both the political leaders but also the civil servants. And he's right, the biggest aspect of corruption actually is within the civil service, and that has to be tackled. But that doesn't mean that we should leave the political class, because part of the political class is also corrupt, as we have seen in some of the cases Parliament is handling.
I really do agree with what the submission of Honorable Chris. And you see, indiscipline in political class and corruption are almost the same thing. Because our leadership structure here is in such a way that you have a political class which must have eyes on, and the civil arm with hands on, both eyes on and hands on. And the political arm plays the leadership role of giving directives, directions, of giving instructions.
Let's get this clearly.
And
who's hands on?
Yeah, hands on and eyes on.
And hands on is the
hands on, eyes on is civil servant.
Civil, yes.
And then eyes on, hands off.
Hands on, hands off.
Exactly, are the politics. Exactly.
Go on.
So the indiscipline aspect comes in a way that the politician gets involved like the civil servant.
Their hand is straight.
Exactly. Their hands get thrown under the table onto resources.
Yes.
Where they're not supposed to be touching. And there's been a kind of, should I call it a commission between the two, where actually
they collude.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yes.
In embezzling resources, and this has happened, we have seen it. So when the president comes to say it is the civil servants, the permanent secretaries, the cows, the CEOs, and what have you, who are actually the technical architects of corruption in this country, I do agree with him. Because these are the people who plan, and then they bring the plans. For instance, what happens in Parliament, the budget is being drawn by technical people. So it is brought to Parliament to look through, to have the eyes on and see. But why the resources are controlled by people. So once a minister colludes with the permanent secretary and the technical people there and have that good relationship, they can embezzle whatever resources they want.
Right.
For instance, in Gulu, the construction of a market has been stopped. Why? Because this very permanent secretary who ate bicycles colluded with another technical person on the ground. Exactly. And we are glad that the political arm in Gulu local government is very awake. They were able to hold the whole thing, and now they're beginning to dig into the bottom of where the problems are. Right. So, really to address corruption, we need to get these two people on table, right, and tell them, can you play your constitutional roles? For instance, for us to fight corruption now, we don't need lamentations. The NRM has lamented for over 26 years, and corruption has kept growing. From 100,000,
what should we do?
We are now talking of trillions.
How do we
need to identify the causes of corruption?
We don't know the causes.
And in civil service, we know it. It is under remuneration. People are being underpaid. Teachers have been complaining. You have heard of doctors stealing drugs. Why would a doctor steal drugs? When in Rwanda, a doctor who has the same qualification, who actually trained here in Makerere,
is paid in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. So until we recognize that, we begin paying good salaries for people to do good job for us.
Right.
Then
recent studies on corruption have shown that it is not necessarily
the amount of
low
pay. Yes,
it is just
the welfare. Not that for me, I disagree here
because you need to amass wealth.
Right.
Really,
that is the reason.
Demonstration effect. Looking at the neighbors' car driving.
Absolutely.
Exactly. But the cause of this. In the past, we have heard of doctors driving. We have heard of, even some head teachers driving. We have heard of.
My father was a civil servant. Exactly. He could afford a car.
Exactly. The welfare of a civil servant without taking any resources. So this area where the Dr. Chris should advise the president to look into. We don't need civil servants to demonstrate on the streets sincerely for improve the welfare. So these are exactly. These are key fundamental issues which the president should have addressed.
Right.
And I'm sure if he had addressed this, we would see our resources being well managed. The 6+ trillions which are being collected from Ugandans should have been reinvested in the Ugandans who are paying this money.
6 trillion, you're talking about $2.5 billion. That's a substantial amount.
That money is coming from us here.
Nicholas, I'd like us to talk about oil, but before we do that, how would we cut off the head of the monster called corruption? Very quickly, then we'll talk about oil, the baby of the NRM according to the president.
Well, you see, it's difficult to prescribe one particular solution, to this monster called corruption. But quite definitely, we need more political leadership on matters drivers of corruption, really, because once you don't have that highest will to fight corruption, whatever happened down will happen with impunity.
Highest will to fight corruption.
But for as long as you have ministers, you have PSs, you have higher-ranking government officials involved in corruption, and they walk scot-free, it will only act to encourage impunity in all the sectors of the economy, from teachers to doctors to everybody else will then begin stealing. But if you begin to demonstrate commitment at the highest level, if a minister can be prosecuted and jailed for corruption, that would be a powerful message. But also, secondly, we need to examine ourselves as a country, as a people, really. What values do we have? What values do we propagate? We don't seem to have values these days. I mean, a lawyer's ability is judged by what kind of suit or car he drives, no matter how he gets it. A thief who has stolen money in the US will be exalted and carried shoulder high here. So we need to begin to give it the front seat in the church. So we need to re-examine our conscience as a nation, as a people. What values do we espouse?
Let's talk about conscience. Kakoma composed the national anthem 50 years ago. He did not ask for pay until recently. What do you think would drive that?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, he's as of right. He's got a right.
Well, but he didn't ask for it long ago. Why is he asking for it now? The Chief Justice
has now seen
with a small salary. All of a sudden he says 50 million. Closely, he's a man of very, very high moral values. What drives this kind?
I mean, if you're compensating for owning,
that's you see, the president quoted URA, staff, where he put young tax, and it has paid and it has paid government well. But the truth of the matter is, URA has got a high rate of turnover of staff. Why? They are doing good work. They are being paid little, and many of them it's now a training ground actually. So reason being that the temptation for corruption has been cut, but
they are tougher.
Exactly. So
it's actually possible to stop corruption.
Exactly. If they can so we really need to look into that direction and see how do we address this.
Let's talk about the NRM baby, also known as oil. Nicholas, as it comes online, maybe by 2014, is it something that's going to be managed well? Do you think corruption will have ended by that time?
You see, the discovery of an important natural resource such as oil can either be a curse or a blessing for a particular country, depending on how you deal with it. Because any effort that gets it wrong from the very start, in terms of transparency, in terms of legislative framework, the management framework, would only help to lay a ground for future conflict. So I do think that the Uganda's oil industry, if not handled properly, will be the same problem that we see in many African countries, and indeed many Arab countries, that oil will become a curse. The indicators now point to a very grim picture, a picture of an industry shrouded in secrecy, an industry shrouded in what I would call mafiaism.
Mafiaism?
I can tell you, there are a lot of fights going on because of the oil industry.
Yes.
There are things you wouldn't see with your open eye unless you have information. I can tell you, for example, because of the discovery of oil, we had to change the PGB into a special force.
The presidential
appoint the first son to head it and give it exclusive
to look after oil.
Give it exclusive rights of protecting our oil industry, especially in the Upland region. The only other security agency that protects the region is actually owned by the president's brother.
Yes, you talk about Saracen?
Yes, these are not very good signs.
Yes.
The entire members of parliament have no idea about what the agreements provide.
Yes.
For me, these are pointers to an imminent problem.
We're closer to a
imminent suspicion of what is happening. Now, to even go to these areas, you've got to get a permit. It became like Karamoja in the COVID days. You've got to get a permit to
go to oil country.
And see where the oil, the oil wells are. It is shrouded in secrecy, and that's bad for our country. It raises suspicion, especially given the fact that some of these things we are seeing, that the first son is the one protecting it.
Maybe so it shows the importance the country puts in oil.
Let's see on the record. History will judge you. Talk to us about it.
No, of course, it was a very great opportunity for Uganda to discover the oil, and all of us received it with excitement. And that's why, as a parliament, we noted that the initial steps and arrangements to manage this resource seem not have been going on well, and that's why we recalled Parliament and had that explosive discussion so that we can redirect the whole mechanism of how we manage this oil sector. And the Parliament hasn't stopped there. We continue to engage the executive, and I hope we shall put everything to the right path so that we...
You've been disregarded in your resolutions.
No, we are still on. We are still on. It's not yet over. So we are really hopeful that we shall put it on the right path, and therefore we don't have a curse, but we have a fortune out of this oil.
Well, but all the signs point to a curse. We are closer to Nigeria. When you look at all the signs, we have two classic examples in Africa, Nigeria and Botswana, who have diamonds. They have a resource blessing because they were transparent. They opened up, went into EITI, the Extractive Industries Transparency International. We are closer to the Nigeria scenario where things cause problems. You have, you know, shadow groups.
Well, we're still the formative and the early stages.
Formative, we have only 2006 to now we have 6 years. We have less than 6 years to get the oil flowing.
Yeah, but we have just been in the exploration period, signing the agreements. No production has taken place. So I think we can nip in the bud maybe the bad practices which could have been.
Somebody has said it's not where you're standing that matters, but where you're facing. Are we faced in the right direction on that?
Yes, now Parliament has come in to provide leadership to ensure that.
And they can't hold the contracts.
No, now we have them. Now we have them.
Yes.
And we did pass a number of resolutions. And when the Parliament opens on the 7th of February, we are going to review and see how the executive has responded to a number of these resolutions. So I can pledge that the Parliament will guide and provide leadership on this amount of oil so that we don't turn into a curse.
We'll take your word with optimism. Atiku, what's your word there?
Yeah, I think on the matter of oil, truly, the way things were going on, we were faced for an oil curse. But we're happy Parliament has come in and many resolutions were passed, though with a lot of hesitation from the executive.
Hesitation, yes.
This, don't do that, and so many caucuses were called, the retreats. But when you read the papers, Ministry of Energy is already taking some action on those things, and I think as soon as Parliament resumes, those are some of the issues we're going to have to review. How much progress have they made in terms of those resolutions we passed for them to implement?
We demanded that the enabling laws must be in place before we go into production.
And they're not coming. There's a lot of snail pace.
No, I think some of them are ready.
Actually, for me, the slower the better, because if we were to move at the speed they're moving on, of course we would have already made mistakes.
Right. Okay.
But if they reduce the speed, I mean, oil is there. Uganda is not ending tomorrow, and we are not about to solve our problems just now.
Right.
So the slower we move, the better for this country in terms of reaping from the oil benefits.
Let's move forward, Honorable Atiku. President Kagame was decorated. President Theodore Ngwema was decorated of Equatorial Guinea. Why did Ngwema? We know about Kagame. He fought here. Why did Ngwema get this reward?
I don't know. The president says for the good leadership in his country, and at the same time his goodwill for uniting Africa and what have you. But I think I would say point blank that this guy did not deserve any award.
Well, let's get
maybe something else, but not really.
Let's get some facts here. Maybe he does. Let's get some facts first of all. Equatorial Guinea has he's stayed in power longest in Africa, Theodore Ngwema, since 1970. That's 33 years. So maybe he's a role model to some people whose names I want to but probably also his economy is the fastest growing economy in the world for the last 10 years, 19.2%. Don't you think that that's something that reward, it wasn't, but
you see, once you begin digging into the background of how one has achieved the success, the success story in Equatorial Guinea, yes, can be attributed to
longevity.
Exactly, the longevity and what
stability.
Stability, you may call it. But if you are to go down and see the state of the economy of Equatorial Guinea, find a difference.
It is the fastest growing economy in the world.
Fastest growing, but I mean, when you analyze all the sectors, is it bringing on board everybody? How is it helping the region? how is it, first of all, in the interest of Uganda? I know the current president is the chair of the OAU.
Yes.
I mean AU. So must we just dish out medals because somebody is sharing the AU?
But he's been the longest serving leader. Too, he has the fastest growing economy in the world. There must be something there that you are not seeing.
Really, for me, I don't think I'll give him my credit. And
you don't think he deserves a medal?
No.
I think in the principle, if one does well, being recognized, being rewarded, I think it's okay. And I want to believe that it's because of the transformation he has caused the economy in the Equatorial Guinea, and also the way he has managed the oil sector really successfully, and that Uganda decided to give him this medal.
But what are the corruption indices in that country?
Well, I don't have a lot of details about what goes on there, but I would think the way the president and his government have managed the economy in their country is the reason why he is being recognized. And for President Kagame, of course, we all know that he was a part of this country and he contributed to the liberation struggle. So
he's a Ugandan on one side. He grew up here. He came here 3 years old.
Absolutely. So we don't have a problem with giving them the medals, provided the reasons are clearly justifiable. I see you hinting on the longevity and so forth.
Well,
in Uganda,
it's known. It's the longest serving.
I think here, what's also clear is
by Mugabe.
Here we have put a democratic practice in that every 5 years Ugandans are able to elect their own leader.
In Egypt it was 6 years, go on.
So even the President John Museveni, whom we complain about, Ugandans have a chance to cast a ballot, and if they don't want him, to remove him.
Using a piece of paper.
But you see, there's one point here.
He's not hanging on.
Right.
He's not in a dictatorial manner the way I've been ruled in this country.
Right.
But Ugandans have a chance to either approve of his stay or reject him, and they have been voting him
every 5 years.
Every 5 years.
And the votes are going up.
There's one point which I want to.
Nicholas, let's talk about Theodongo. Did he deserve that medal and why?
Well, you see, awards of medals in many countries, you know, people look up to it. It's something prestigious. It's something meaningful when you're knighted an MBE, you know, a sir. But I think Uganda's practice over the last couple of years have rendered these medals useless.
What do you mean?
I can tell you. The National Honours Awards Act of 2001 provides for the different kinds. There are many awards. There is even one for spouses of heads of government, the one for vice presidents. There are so many awards. The one of Kabalega, the one of Ndumba, the one of Kagera, Luero. There are hundreds of awards. The Act provides that there must be a committee to advise the president on who to get awards.
Yes.
Clear criteria. People who deserve it must be recommended. I wonder who the members of this committee are. I wonder what grounds they use to advise the president to award these medals.
Right.
Go on. Sometimes I think that this committee, if it exists, it is not functioning.
Well, but we saw awards the other day. We might see some more on the 6th of February. What's wrong?
The point is.
You never know. You can easily make it to this.
I don't deserve anyone. But I think there must be a clear criteria of who gets awards and what awards mean if they're supposed to be meaningful for this country.
Right.
There's not supposed to be an office of a chancellery who is supposed to be the custodian of these awards. If your award is lost, he should replace it. If it is damaged, he must repair it. You know.
A physical place.
Exactly.
Well, but you know there's a committee headed by Professor
That committee should look at the different disciplines. They should look at the engineers, who are the engineers who have made a contribution, the doctors, teachers, and so forth. Instead of look at those who have fought in the liberation struggles, I think they should spread to look at various disciplines and see people who have made a significant contribution to the growth and development of Uganda.
Also, as we come to the height of this, President Kagame, when the Rwandan rebels they were in the Ugandan army. When they invaded Rwanda October 1st, 1990, President Museveni denied fervently that he was part of that invasion. Right now, Kagame says he's thanking us for our help.
Does it surprise you?
Go on. you know, he denied fervently. When they invaded, he was at the UN, I think. He went to France. He did come back in a hurry. And he denied. He said, I knew nothing. His voice would break as he spoke in the microphone. I knew nothing. Why is it being accepted?
That's how theatrical some of these politicians are. I mean, it shouldn't surprise you. I'm not surprised, really. But the point I need to make is that we need to go back to the drawing board and make this award meaningful. You know, the picture of Museveni awarding his wife a medal.
What's wrong?
It's the most comical picture I've ever seen.
What do you mean?
Not that she has made any
for a long time.
but you ask yourself, why has she got a medal? What has she done? Is this for actions in the bedroom?
This is a simple thing being first lady. That's an office.
Forget it.
That's an office.
Forget it.
She has made a contribution.
Well, I think she's also a role model. I think a lot of women look up to her.
Well, apart from the hairstyle, what else? You only have Janet Cut.
That's a very strong statement.
Believe me. Believe me. Believe me.
Well,
the contribution of the first lady.
Successful women politician is now on the right.
Yes.
I mean,
She only became a politician for
I think also look
and
up
she
to her.
also contributed the NGO world, the charity, WESO, and so forth. So I think also, apart from being a first lady, I think she has also made a significant
Substantive
yes,
contribution. Fighting AIDS, for instance.
Fight against AIDS and
Murray stops and so on. SOS, the children's village. So President Kagame also said as we go, Honorable Atiku, maybe you talk to us about that. He said Uganda and Rwanda should work together in ensuring good governance and proper utilization of resources. Should we have President Kagame standing in for President Museveni when he goes away for a week, for instance? Kagame for Uganda, you president in Uganda. Help us with some of this.
You see, this was a humorous statement. First and foremost, he looked at what he's done for his people. And
in the last 2 months, he's been a regular visitor here. Should we have him as president for 1 week or 1 month?
maybe things will change because we have seen corruption being fought in Rwanda. And, but the truth is, these are people who have done a lot together.
Yes.
And in moments like this, if we were to have achievements to celebrate,
yes,
they should have been just the way they have been. But of course, you know, in the past we have had some disagreements, some fights,
yes,
in Kisangani and,
yes,
and what have you. Now, when the Rwandan president comes to mention issues of ensuring good governance and proper utilization of resources,
yes,
stressing the failure, that the failure to transform lives of the people can only be blamed on the leadership. Should they both fail to deliver?
Yes.
I think that is a very strong statement, which we the young, now I don't want to talk about Museveni because we must now begin talking about Uganda without Museveni and the old tax. So those are serious statements which we should take in good faith.
Yes.
And say that as young leaders we focus in that direction, because we have got a nation to develop, we have got resources to protect, we have got society to maintain as one Uganda, as one people, and I think that's the direction we are moving in.
Of course, President Kagame has been coming frequently. Maybe the next time he comes, he should be present for maybe 1 month. To lead by example, we have to go. Thank you very much to our dear guest, Honorable Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, Commissioner of Parliament, Kinkizi East MP, also coming from the NRM. He doesn't seem to be very comfortable with Kagame, Rwanda lending us their president to be present for 1 month. He does. Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL, also social and political comment. He's probably more Ugandan than Rwandan. Honorable Atiku, Ayivu, MP-Arua, FDC, from the FDC party. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. The Spectrum will be back on Monday. Up next, there's a news in English. Thank you for tuning in and do be blessed.
Fellow Ugandans,